What's up, guys? Average Kiwi Guy here. How y'all doing? So it's Star Wars night. That means we gotta check out the latest episode of Rebels, and I gotta say, I'm loving these double releases. These part one, part two stories that they're doing at the start of the season. I'm really digging it. I really am. It's because they have that those two episodes to tell this big story. It doesn't feel so rushed, and I really do love that. I think it's really, really good. And this one was these two episodes were fantastic. I loved them, especially the second one. The second one really, really, hit home and was really, really good. First one was a good, solid build up to the second one. So, thoroughly enjoyed in the name of the rebellion. It was really, really cool. Had obviously Saw Gerrera, the main rebel cell now is established on Yavin 4. We had crashing Y-Wings coming in for emergency landings. We had dogfights with TIE defenders. Saw Gerrera coming in with a U-Wing. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And then to top it all off, Death Troopers and freaking, the construction of the Death Star storyline still continuing on. Kyber crystals, all that. So good. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. So we'll start off with part one because obviously we got to go through the sequence. And part one was really all about the Ghost the Spectre team sort of coming back together again. The Rebels coming back together. Hera basically shocked to see everyone together. And Sabine she's here with the team, so she chose to come and help the Rebels out. Because she believes her family would be okay. Rex, is there. Zeb, everyone back together, which was great for a small amount of time. But it was good to have everyone back together in the same place, which was really cool. And they get brought to Yavin 4. You see the old base. You see, it's just full of Y-Wings right now. It's not so big. Cells are starting to, trickle in from everywhere else to create this big rebel cell that will eventually become the Alliance, and which was really cool to see. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the first big scene that happens is Hera's squadron, Phoenix Squadron, coming back from a supply run or something, they said. And they basically got ripped to shreds, and majority of the Y-Wings are damaged. They're coming in hot. Obviously, for some reason they can't hover and land. They're coming in hard. They're dumping their fuel. It's a very cool scene. Kind of pilot scene. I really digged it. I thought it was awesome, and to see how cool good a pilot Hera is, and Wedge was obviously there as well, and I liked it. I think it was a really cool intro scene into getting the team back together, which I loved. I thought it was really good. Then we get Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma basically telling them, sort of figuring out why these missions are going wrong. Empire has a new comm station out there, which is allowing them to organize their fleets better out in the outer rim, more areas, so they're getting on the rebels quicker without while they're doing these missions, and they got to figure out a plan how to stop it. And of course, most people say, "Oh, we'll just destroy it," but no, if we destroy it, they'll just build another one. This is the Empire; they have infinite resources. If we want to hurt them, we got to stay one step ahead. So they want to basically tap into that comm station and figure out where they are, so they can keep one step ahead from all of them. And they also discuss, because Saw Gerrera was the only one who knew this comm station was built, because the rebellion didn't. And they're discussing why that was, and that's because Saw's torturing Imperial prisoners to figure out what's going on. And the rebellion is not prepared to do that. Mon Mothma has no interest in that whatsoever. Where Saw will do whatever it takes. And that's where his partisans come in, and that's just where he creates his own rebel group. If you really, I've got more into the partisans, obviously, after Rogue One, and also the Star Wars Battlefront 2 book, The Inferno Squad. The main mission in that the Inferno Squad get up to is dealing with the remnants of that squad, of his partisans after Saw died on Jeddah. So it was cool to see kind of like the beginnings of that cell, which is pretty cool. And obviously they're the extremist group as well, the partisans. They're the ones that are willing to go after civilians. They target, anyone who gets in their way, they'll just wipe out. They're not afraid to, do whatever it takes. And that's because that's what Saul is. Saul will just go after the Empire no matter what. And it's cool to see how, you're seeing his character slowly moving towards the Rogue One character that we saw, which is cool. I like that. So, and also he snuck a droid into the Rebel base, and he has this big hollow projection of himself, and he's talking to the Rebel Alliance guys, and I think he's trying to recruit them to come and be part of his group, because he doesn't believe Mon Mothma's doing enough, because she's trusting in the senators that are still in the Imperial Senate to reach a peaceful resolution to all this, and maybe try and talk to the Empire and stuff like that, and very Mon Mothma like. And she even has this nice talk with Ezra, because Ezra's annoyed that Lethal's not getting the support that they promised to Ryder, because they said like, oh no, we're gonna come back, we're gonna give you support, we're gonna attack Lethal and free Lethal from the Imperial reign. But Mon Mothma goes, we can't do that. We can't go after. We can't commit those resources to that one planet. She goes on about her own planet of Chandrilla, and them talk. Her saying like, I would love to free my own planet, but I can't. We have to pick and choose who we go after, because we have very finite resources. And we learnt last time when we amassed our rebel fleet that we're not ready to go up against the Empire. We're nowhere near ready. It's just we don't have the resources and the manpower yet. So, and that kind of sets Ezra up for aligning himself more with Saw's thinking. Kanan kind of talks to him and tries to tell him like, it's not about what, it's about how we fight, not when, not where. It's about how we do it. We got to be smart about it. Especially since we got, we're very limited in what we can do. So you got to pick your battles, and when you pick your battles, you win them. That sort of thing. So, but he's still on that thinking of, I want to do more. I want to, maybe Saw's right. Maybe we should be fighting them any way possible. So it's setting up for the second part of the episode, where he actually learns the way Saw fights and how that is not the best way to do things. If you want to do it sort of the right way, So that leads them to the Ghost goes on a mission to take out to tap into this comm station, and so the whole team's there, which is cool, because it's been a while since we've had the whole team. It's been a while, so I'm glad that they're all back together and they're all fighting together in the Ghost, and kind of like the old days a little bit. And they sort of do like a high altitude drop with Sabine and Ezra and Chop. By the way, Chop in these 2 episodes, he's so good. I loved him. Chop even has a fight scene with 2 stormtroopers. He's so good. I love Chop. But yeah, they do a high altitude drop, come down, use jetpacks to slow them down, and they sort of stumble their way on. It's not the cleanest landing, and Chop comes down very hard and slams into the station, and it gets very messy from then on, and they basically get trapped on the station, because a light cruiser comes in, and while they're trying to tap into the communications, they accidentally isolate the command channel or something, and so the light cruiser's trying to talk to the station, but the station can't talk to them, and it's basically like they have to talk for them, and Ezra stuffs it all up. I think he says he's one of the commanders, and it's the commander that we've I think it's Brontitis. I think it sounds like bronchitis, but I think it's Brontitis. But Brontitis is on board that ship, so of course it all goes to hell, and the station sends up stormtroopers, and Chop uses the pivoting dish to, sort of throw the stormtroopers around, and it gets very messy, and it's not a solid. It's not a nice, clean operation, and very typical Rebels. So, and very typical Ezra, who's not the best when it comes to these types of plans. But they sort of have a bit of a fight on there, and then the Ghost comes in to pick them up. But the light cruiser sends out 2 TIE defenders right out of nowhere. So obviously the TIE defender production is picking up. It's speeding up, and they're actually getting some out there. And 2 of them go after the Ghost, and of course they have to peel off. And that's when they have kind of a cool dogfighting scene with the TIE defenders, where Kanan, they can't get through the shields of the TIE defenders because they're ray shielded. So they got to go drop down into the mist of this planet, because it's sort of like one of those planets that has, it's all up on these like rock pillars, and everything else below it's all covered in mist, and they can't really see. But Kanan tells her to go down into the mist and to trust him, and they sort of have this nice little moment, and they have this cool, like, bank left, bank right, go to point 3, typical Star Wars, that, sort of tactical talk. And it was cool. I really did like it. And the TIE defenders kind of took themselves out, and it was cool. But while that's all happening, here comes a U-Wing, pops out of, sort of flies down, very cool, like, takes out the, sort of strafes the light cruiser, comes through, strafes the where the stormtroopers are, and the stormtrooper, chops, tilted the dish, and they're all sliding off. And then here comes Saw Gerrera in a U-Wing, a black and white U-Wing, looks very cool. I love the look of the U-Wings. I mean, I got one right here, got this puppy right here. I love the look of him. The look of them is so cool. As soon as I saw it in Rogue One, I was like, I gotta have it. So as soon as they came out, I got myself one. Excuse me there. But yeah, it was so cool seeing him come down, and them acting like a troop transport, picking them all up, and Saw Gerrera comes in with them. So that's obviously where the U-Wings come from, because they can't be, there must be an episode where maybe some of Saw's partisans may escape and use a U-Wing to come across, and that's where they get the U-Wings from. But it was cool to see it. It was cool to see him flying around, and it was quite cool. And they sort of have to take off, and the Ghost follows them up, and then a Star Destroyer comes in. It's a very action-packed last part to that episode, which is quite cool. And Saw basically takes the Sabine and Ezra and Chop, and says, "Oh, don't worry here. I'll keep the kids. Don't worry. I'll get them back to you. I just need them to help me with something." And they basically jump into hyperspace, and Hera's worried about them because Saw Gerrera, not exactly the greatest role model, and 2 kind of impressionable young little fighters, and probably not the best mentor to have. So that they zoom off into hyperspace, and that's part 1. That was part 1, and it was a good build up. It was a really good build up to this next part, which I loved. I love this next part, mainly because it delves into the construction of the Death Star, and kind of acts like a lead up to the likes of Rogue One, and like you see Death Troopers and stuff, which is really cool. But part 1, I loved how they showed the split, the split between the Rebel Alliance and Saw Gerrera. Saw, he has his own way of fighting. The Rebels have their own way of fighting. So it's cool to see that split, and you understand, like, now you kind of understand a little more from Rogue One why Saw is so distant from them, and why they can't just go up to him and say, "Hey, Saw, I hear you got an Imperial pilot. Mind if we have a talk with him?" Like, this is why, because they're so at odds with each other, and Saw believes he should be fighting one way, Mon Mothma believes they should be fighting another. So yeah, it's definitely it was cool to see, and I dug that part. And then obviously the whole stuff with the easily impressionable young kind of listening to Saw's words, and Saw talks a good talk, right? We got to fight the Empire. We got to fight anywhere we can. We're at war and we got to be fighting them in this way. And you could see how he could, get his supporters to really back him, and shows that he is that he's a good leader, but not for the good reasons. He's definitely not fighting for the greatest of intentions, and the way he fights is sort of like, how far will you go? Which is funny because that's kind of the line that Saw has in one of the Rogue One trailers. What will you become, sort of thing. So yeah, I like part 1. I thought part 1 was really good. Set up part 2 nicely. Got the team back together. Showed us Yavin 4. Loved that. And obviously the U-Wings and all that. So really, really good. Really, really good. Then part 2, which by far has been, is one of my favorites. One of my favorites is basically Saw has this intel that the Empire is transporting a secret package on board a civilian cargo freighter, and he believes that it's linked to the weapon that they discovered part of with Geonosis when they were on Geonosis, and he believes that that's building the super weapon, and he wants to find out what it is, and he wants to stop them from getting whatever they have on board that cargo ship. And they get to this like hub space, hub station where it's all just cargo going everywhere, and this big cargo ship comes up. I love that, by the way. I love the look of that cargo ship where it's like basically this big sort of U for the ship, and then all the containers in that are all like magnetically locked to the ship, and it was cool. It's that giant cargo ship was cool, a cool design. But they paint up Chop to look like one of the droids that works there. Because Sabine just has spray paint right then and there, perfect color, perfect everything. She's just got those cans that can just, she must have like this pack that's full of paint. So as you do, and yeah, they sneak onto this ship, and they sort of sneak around, and they trying to figure out what's going on, and Chop taps into it. And they find a container that's full of prisoners, and they start talking to them, and they're all power technicians, reactor technicians, all these technicians that are needed to build the Death Star. This is all stuff that is leading into that. And like they all come from like the Coruscant power companies and stuff like that, which is all linked into the Death Star and Galen Erso and Krennic and all these guys, which is very, very cool. And it starts linking it all together, which is awesome, and I love it. So they have to try and Saw's not interested in getting these guys out. They're like, oh, that's we got bigger things to do. We don't have to worry about them. And like, of course, Ezra and Sabine are like, no, we need to get these guys out of here. So they kind of put Chop in charge of that, and Chop kind of acts like this tour guide that's sort of like, this way, come on, this way, and he's got to protect this group of prisoners. And they have this little kind of they're the funny side of this episode, where they have this little him interacting with the prisoners is really kind of funny. I like it a lot. And they're going to try and get them to the escape pods while they take the ship out of hyperspace. Then they find out where the actual cargo is that the Empire is transporting on this ship. And they basically walk into a room full of Death Troopers. An entire squad of Death Troopers just standing there guarding this this like sort of crate, this big box, this sealed box. And I was like, yes! Like, it was so cool to see these Death Troopers. They have the they're like sound that they make, but they actually you could hear what they were saying. And they have this kind of a cool scene where they throw gas grenades in, and they basically do kind of like a Batman thing, where they take them out, they take everyone out while they can't see anything, and it was cool. It was cool, and like Ezra running around with his lightsaber, and you just see this green flash, and of course they're like, very, very, very cool, like, and they take everyone out bar, I think the commander, this commander lady. So she runs off to get backup. But when they were fighting, the containment, like the container that was holding the cargo, gets breached, and something like whatever's inside burns through the container, and it is a giant kyber crystal, and that was the second. So this is the second massive crystal that the Empire is trying to get to the Death Star. This is all, because this is what is the main. The main weapon of the Death Star is this. This is why. And they talk about the Jeddah system and all this stuff. So it's all linking in. I love that. I love it. It's so good. And this giant crystal, which is very unstable because it just absorbs energy. Just absolutely absorbs it. It keeps sucking it out, and they can't shoot around it or anything. And they're like, whoa, we need to put our blasters away because we can't let this thing, go critical here. And, basically what they get to a point where they have to decide, look, we got to get these prisoners off the ship, or we gotta, but Saw's like, no, I think they said they're going to like the Tartarus system. It's some system that has no planets, no nothing. It's just this empty space there. And so, Saw thinks, oh, perfect. A perfect place to hide a super weapon. This super weapon, tracking, because I never stopped tracking it from Geonosis. So, he's, I have to find this thing. We have to follow this cargo to wherever it's going. But, Sabine and Ezra are like, whoa, we got to get these prisoners out of here. We got to make sure that the Empire doesn't get this crystal. We got to do what our original plan was. We got to take the hyperspace drive offline and get these, prisoners out of here. Use the escape pods and get out of here. But, and they say like to him, like, okay, you guard this crystal. Make sure no one gets it. We'll go sabotage the hyperspace drive. So they go and do that. But then, of course, Saw doesn't believe in that. Saw doesn't want to do that. And he basically goes down and stuns the two of them, because because Saw, he doesn't take orders from anyone. He's going to do what he believes is right, and he will always do what he believes is right, whatever the cost. And meanwhile, the ship's been alerted because the commander of the Death Trooper squad, sort of comes on the radio and she's like, she needs backup. We got to get to the we have to go down to the this cargo hold and get it back, because the crystal can't we can't lose this crystal. Tell Director Krennic that we are in trouble, and we this is we have a problem. And so they purge all of the escape pods, but Chop's already got the prisoners to the escape pods, because that's how they're going to get out. So Chop's sort of going to sort of realizes that all the escape pods are jettisoning. He's like, oh, he sort of like gets to them and he's like, out. The way Chop does with his arms, and he's sort of going on. And of course, all the prisoners are like, why are you making us get out? And it's a bit of a funny little scene. Like I said, Chop in this episode, so good. So yeah, and basically it all wraps up with Saw's captured Ezra and Sabine, and somehow this giant crystal on this, I'm assuming it's on like a hover like trolley or whatever it's called, right? He somehow got it out of this cargo hold and into engineering. This giant wide crystal through these small doors. It didn't add up how he got it down there. It just the size proportion, like getting it through this ship would not have worked, because it's like the Death Trooper commander and a squad of stormtroopers go into this cargo hold and nothing's there, and because Saw's taken it to engineering. I was like, Saw, how the hell did you get it down there? It's not like Star Trek or anything where you could transport it from one place to another. It's not that way. So I don't know how that happened. But yeah, so he's holding out to see where this cargo ship's going, because he believes it's going to lead us to this super weapon. But they come out of hyperspace and they're just there, and it's just a rendezvous point. They're rendezvousing there with the Star Destroyer, and the Star Destroyer is coming in, and he's like, okay, we're gonna have to get out of here. And so he shoots the engines or the hyperdrive of the ship, and then he shoots the crystal as well, and that makes it go critical, and it starts sucking in all this energy. And Sabine and Ezra are like, but we gotta save the prisoners, we gotta get them out of here. And he's like, well, you're gonna have to do it quick, sort of thing. And he calls in his buddy from Rogue One, Benthic. Benthic was the guy who was flying the U-wing, and he's the guy that took the pilot Brody from the pilot from Rogue One. So it was kind of cool to see those two together. Yet another sort of cameo thing, which was very cool. He flies in and sort of picks Saw up, and Saw's sort of like, dang it, we were so close, sort of thing, and they sort of bug out, and that means that Ezra and Sabine got to save these these prisoners, I should say. So they're going through the ship while Chop is sort of protecting these group of prisoners. They get to this bay where a Lambda shuttle is, and he goes in there, tells the prisoners to hide, and then he goes and takes on two stormtroopers, and he goes past them, then shocks one, and then he sort of goes like, wow! He sort of like go karate, like swings around, he takes out two stormtroopers, which is so cool. I loved it. And then the prisoners get on board, but then the Death Trooper squad shows up, and he's like, I can't take them out. But that's when Sabine and all that show up, and they manage to take over from them and get them on get on board and fly out with the Lambda shuttle. But the crystal goes critical, and Sabine knows that, so she puts herself behind the Star Destroyer, because the Star Destroyer is coming over the top of the cargo ship to take the cargo, obviously, and the crystal goes critical and blows up completely, just rips through it, and the shockwave catches the Lambda shuttle and shuts everything down. But the explosion was so good. Rebels is getting really good at those giant explosions. They did a good job there. And yeah, that's basically when the Ghost, they're sort of like stranded there a little bit, and that's when the Ghost shows up. And they sort of pick them all up. And the technicians that were all saved, the prisoners, they say, the Rebels were like, yo, we'll drop you off at your home planets and stuff. And they're like, no. If the Empire thought we were important enough that they needed us, then obviously we should be valuable for you. We'll join the rebellion. So the rebellion picked up a whole bunch of scientists and technicians and power specialists and stuff like that. So, it's just the rebellion slowly gaining resources and stuff like that, which was pretty cool. And, Ezra and Sabine kind of learning that, Saw's way of doing things maybe isn't the right way. Maybe the way we do fight is, we don't need to become the Empire to be, to beat the Empire, sort of thing. So it was a really good episode. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good, especially when they're going into like the construction of the Death Star, like the Kyber crystals, and obviously the Death Troopers, and the Saw Gerrera stuff. I love it because it weaves this universe together, this Star Wars universe together, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just it's something that I really dig. And that's what I've always loved about Rebels, is that they've the more and more they've got, the more seasons they've done, they do more and more of this, and it's great. It was really, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because probably not the best episode they've ever done, but it was just really interesting to watch and really, really awesome to watch, and I loved it. Oh, it was really good. But yeah. Alright guys, that's it for us. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace. Bye.